So, imagine this. You're having a completely normal day, right? You're at a restaurant, you step into the restroom, and you hang your purse on the coat hook on the back of the door.
A totally reflex action. You don't even think about it.
Exactly. But then the hook gives way, your purse slips, and this piece of plastic just clatters to the floor. You're annoyed, obviously, so you report it to the manager.
And the manager's probably just as confused as you are.
Right, because he looks at you and says, we don't actually have coat hooks in our restrooms.
Oh, wow. That is terrifying.
It gets worse. He goes in to inspect this piece of plastic on the floor, and hidden seamlessly inside what looks like an ordinary, everyday coat hook is a high-definition digital camera.
Yeah, you've just discovered a trap.
You really have. And today we're doing a deep dive into the forensic files of the Andrew Boden case. We want to figure out exactly how predators are using, really cheap tech to turn everyday environments into hunting grounds.
It's a huge issue. We're looking at a comprehensive forensic and jurisprudential analysis to really understand how this miniaturized technology has completely transformed voyeurism.
Because we aren't talking about, like, opportunistic peeping Tom misdemeanors here.
No, not at all. We are talking about high-yield, systematic enterprises of exploitation.
Yeah. And the sources emphasize this massive paradigm shift in how these crimes operate now,
They
right?
do. I mean, historically, voyeuristic crimes had a really strict geographical limitation. The offender needed physical proximity.
Right, like a direct line of sight.
Exactly. They had to be looking in the shadows, taking this immense physical risk to, I don't know, look through a window or a gap in a partition.
Which is how we usually picture it.
Yeah, but the advent of low-cost, high-capacity digital recording devices completely severed that physical tether. Modern digital predators use what forensic reports call psychological camouflage.
Psychological camouflage. I like that term. It operates like digital age hunting.
Yeah, how so?
Well, you set a trap that perfectly blends into the environment, you walk away, and you just let the technology do the work for you. You don't even have to be in the same zip code when the crime actually occurs.
That's a great analogy. It's exactly like that.
So to understand how a trap like this is set, we have to look at the architect first. And the profile of Andrew Crawford Boden completely shatters that stereotypical image of, like, a creeper hiding in the bushes.
It really does. When he was arrested in the summer of 2014, Boden was a 64-year-old corporate professional.
Wait, 64?
Yeah. He worked at Pioneer Natural Resources, which is a major corporate entity in Irving, Texas. And he lived in a highly affluent, gated community on Green Park Drive.
So we are talking about a guy with serious resources.
Right. And this socioeconomic status is crucial to the forensic analysis. His wealth and his age provided him with this shield of normalization.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he had the disposable income to constantly buy, deploy, and replace specialized covert tech without raising any red flags with his bank or his family.
Oh, right. Because a massive credit card charge for camera equipment doesn't really look out of place for a wealthy executive.
Exactly. And beyond the money, he had that corporate aura. A well-dressed 64-year-old executive walking down a commercial hallway past a restroom, it simply doesn't register as a threat to our brains.
He essentially had an invisibility cloak against standard retail loss prevention.
Yeah. Security guards are trained to look for teenagers stealing merchandise, not, senior executives carrying counterfeit bathroom fixtures.
That is so unsettling. But what about the psychological aspect? How did he justify this to himself?
That's heavily analyzed in the case files. During his later police interviews, Boden claimed his initial purchase of covert cameras was simply to, and this is a quote, protect his office from theft.
I am not buying that for a single second.
Where the psychological analysis calls this a classic psychological bridge. By framing the purchase as a defensive security measure, he was able to acquire the tools of his crimes while still, telling himself he was a law-abiding professional.
But come on. A guy ordering covert pinhole cameras knows exactly what he's doing from the moment he types in his credit card number. You don't accidentally buy a spy camera to watch your stapler.
You would think so. But the forensic psychology literature shows that offenders often need a narrative to sleep at night. The initial search query might genuinely be for a nanny cam or a clock radio camera for a desk.
Okay, I can see that.
But once those catalogs of covert gear are open in the browser, the rationalization allows them to browse the more insidious devices. They tell themselves they are just looking at the technology.
And then the rationalization just dissolves once the equipment arrives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Boden later admitted to investigators that he was compelled by a need for visual stimulation.
So the opportunity activated the latent deviance. He had the tech in his hands, realized the sheer power of what he could get away with, and just made a conscious choice.
A choice to prioritize his gratification over the autonomy of other people.
Yeah. And his escalation wasn't an overnight jump into public spaces, right? It was a highly calculated progression.
Very calculated. The sources lay out a strict timeline showing exactly how he built his confidence. The baseline attack, what the reports call occupational exploitation, started on his own familiar turf at Pioneer Natural Resources.
At his own workplace.
Yeah. He secretly placed a camera underneath the desk of a female part-time employee.
Ugh, that is such a profound violation of trust. Why start there?
Because it was his own workplace, it functioned as a low-risk proving ground. He used his occupational authority and sustained access to the building to test the equipment under controlled conditions.
So he's treating this poor woman like a beta test.
Sadly, yes. He needed to figure out the logistical hurdles of the hardware. Like, how long does a lithium microbattery last? What's the optimal camera angle to capture a subject without the lens being obstructed?
And I imagine he had to figure out how to get the footage back without getting caught.
Most importantly, yes. He needed to practice retrieving the data cards without arousing suspicion. Knowing the part-time employee's schedule meant he knew exactly when the office would be empty.
Giving him the safety to tamper with the device? So once he mastered the battery life and the angles, the arrogance kicks in. He realizes he can pull this off.
Right. So he moves to a much higher yield target. In August 2013, he hit a corner bakery restaurant in Irving, Texas. And his modus operandi evolved significantly here.
This is where the counterfeit coat hook comes in, right?
Yes. He deployed the counterfeit coat hook in the restroom. The mechanics of it rely entirely on that psychological camouflage we discussed earlier.
Because it's molded from cheap plastic to look exactly like standard commercial hardware.
Exactly. Above the actual peg where you hang your item, there's a microscopic pinhole, barely larger than a grain of sand hiding the lens. And the back plate houses a micro SD card slot and a tiny battery.
And because people expect to see a coat hook on the back of a bathroom door, the brain just filters it out as a utilitarian object. You don't inspect the molding, you just use it.
That's why it's so terrifying. We rely on heuristics, mental shortcuts to get through our day. If we inspected every single fixture in every room we entered, we'd never get anything done.
Boden exploited that human trust.
He really did. When the corner bakery management handed over the memory card from that fallen hook to the police, the sheer volume of data was staggering.
How much was on there?
It had captured 10 videos of victims in a 5-minute window.
Wait, 10 videos in 5 minutes?
Yeah, a 5-minute turnover rate is an aggressive, industrial scale of voyeurism.
That's insane. So Irving Police Department officer Sean Cawthon took on the investigation. But the reality of a public commercial restroom makes traditional police work nearly impossible, right?
Yeah, I mean, hundreds of people cycle through a restaurant bathroom every single day. There is no sign-in sheet. Without a suspect caught in the physical act of planting the device, there's just no trail.
So the case goes cold.
It went cold for 9 whole months.
And those 9 months just gave Boden the confidence to refine his tactics even further. By May of 2014, he hit a Brahms restaurant in Grapevine, Texas.
And his MO shifted yet again. He abandoned the coat hook and moved to a counterfeit electrical outlet, affixing it to the wall at a low angle in the women's restroom.
I have to ask, how on earth does someone install a fake electrical socket in a public bathroom without drawing attention? It's incredibly brazen. You can't just bring a power drill and drywall screws into a Brahms bathroom during the lunch rush.
You're right, you can't. So he bypassed the tools entirely. He used double-sided adhesive tape to stick the fake outlet cover directly to the wall.
Tape, just tape.
Just tape. And that shortcut created a structural anomaly. A real electrical outlet sits flush against the drywall or tile, and the slots have metal grounding contacts inside.
Right.
Boden's device stuck out a 1/4 inch from the wall because the battery pack behind the plastic plate, and it was held on by visible tape.
So that extreme risk is what finally brought his operation down. An observant assistant manager at the Brahms noticed the tape, realized an electrical outlet shouldn't be taped to the tile, pulled it off, and discovered the hidden lens.
Thank goodness for that manager paying attention to their environment.
Seriously. But Boden's arrogance blinded him to a massive operational flaw during that installation, didn't it?
It was a fatal flaw. While he was pressing that taped outlet to the wall, the camera was already powered on and recording.
No way.
Yes, it captured his own reflection perfectly in the restroom mirror. And external security cameras also caught him walking down the corridor toward the restrooms earlier that day, matching the clothing from the mirror reflection.
So that single piece of tape at Brahms didn't just unravel his trap, it launched a multi-jurisdictional manhunt.
Exactly. Grapevine police suddenly possessed a crystal-clear photo of a predator, but they lacked a name. Boden had no localized criminal history, so his face didn't trigger any immediate matches in the database.
So what did they do?
They issued a regional be on the lookout alert to surrounding departments.
And over in Irving, detectives saw the alert and immediately recognized the MO. They realized the suspect perfectly matched their cold case from the corner bakery 9 months prior.
Right. The jurisdictions finally connected the dots, pooling their resources. Grapevine PD made a highly effective tactical decision here. They crowdsourced the identification.
Oh, smart. How did they do that?
Using early digital forensic techniques, they recovered deleted setup photos of Boden's face from the Brahms camera.
Even though he tried to delete them.
Yep. They took those photos and immediately released them to the local media. When you know a serial offender is actively targeting transient public spaces, you have to bypass traditional slow-burn detective work and leverage the public's eyes.
And it worked flawlessly. Within hours of the news broadcast, citizens recognized the affluent executive and called in the tips.
The takedown moved with incredible speed after that. Police confronted Boden at his home in the gated community. They secured his consent to take a laptop and a thumb drive right from his house.
Which is a massive victory, getting the hardware before he realizes the walls are closing in and decides to encrypt or physically destroy the drives.
Exactly. Boden then actually drove himself to the Grapevine Police Department for an interview with Detectives Cox and Graves.
He drove himself?
Yeah, he sat down for a non-custodial interview. The door to the interview room was unlocked. He was legally free to stand up, walk out to his car, and drive home at any moment.
That has to create immense psychological tension for the detectives. They have to keep him talking without triggering his instinct to flee and lawyer up.
It's a very delicate conversation.
Yeah.
But during it, the facade of the untouchable corporate professional totally crumbled. He confessed to placing the Brahms camera, the workplace camera, and several others across the Dallas-Fort Worth multiplex.
Wow. And while he was confessing in Grapevine, a corporate raid was going down in Irving, right?
Yes. The corporate security director at Pioneer Natural Resources locked down Boden's executive office the moment they got word, holding the perimeter until police arrived with a search warrant.
And the evidence trove inside that office was terrifying. They found receipts detailing his supply chain of spy gear, stacks of identical SD cards used to swap out footage quickly, instructional manuals for night vision equipment, additional laptops, and a phone.
He was formally arrested on June 2, 2014. But getting the handcuffs on him was really only the prologue to a grueling forensic nightmare.
Because of the sheer volume of evidence?
Yes. The burden of evidence processing in digital voyeurism cases is staggering. Between the devices seized at his home and his corporate office, investigators uncovered nearly 1,000 illicit videos.
1,000 videos?
Yeah. And you cannot algorithmically sort digital video the way you can with financial fraud or text-based data. You can't just run a keyword search.
Right, it requires real-time manual human review.
Exactly. Investigators Carmichael and Irving and Weber and Grapevine spent 4 continuous months sitting in a dark room, manually watching and cataloging every single frame of those 1,000 videos to correlate them to physical locations and build the evidentiary narrative.
4 months. But Boden's total technological ignorance actually aided the investigators here, didn't it?
It really did. He told the police his operational security protocol was to review the illicit footage on his work computer and then delete the files off the SD cards. He genuinely believed that dragging a video file to the digital trash can permanently destroyed the evidence.
Which is just not how computers work.
It's a remarkably common misconception among digital criminals. When you delete a file on a standard operating system, the computer does not erase the actual video. It simply de-indexes it.
Like taking the car out of the library catalog, but the book is still on the shelf.
That's a perfect way to put it. The underlying binary data, the actual ones and zeros making up the video, remains perfectly intact on the physical drive until new data is written over it.
And because he used high-capacity SD cards and swapped them frequently, he rarely overwrote his old data.
Exactly. Forensic investigators easily deployed recovery software to read the raw drive sectors, resurrecting the entire archive he thought he had wiped.
So processing those 1,000 videos went far beyond just building a watertight prosecution against Boden. The central focus of those 4 months of manual review was victimology, right?
Yeah. Investigators had to identify the people in these videos. And unlike a robbery or an assault where the victim immediately reports the crime, these victims had absolutely no idea their privacy had been violated.
The entire burden of realizing a crime occurred and identifying the survivor falls squarely on law enforcement.
Right. For the corner bakery footage, the identification process was relatively contained. Investigators worked directly with the restaurant manager to review the tape, and they successfully identified 3 specific employees who had been filmed.
And those employees requested anonymity but urged the district attorney to pursue aggressive prosecution.
They did. But identifying the general public in a transient space requires extraordinary detective work.
Yeah, and Detective Carmichael executed a brilliant piece of OSINT open source intelligence.
He did. Tell them how he did it.
So while reviewing a particularly clear piece of footage from an unknown location, the detective paused the video and zoomed in on a victim's clothing. They managed to read a conference name tag hanging around the victim's neck. They got a first name and a company logo.
It was amazing. Detective Weber then took that fragment of intelligence and cross-referenced it against the data seized from Boden's corporate office.
Like his emails.
Exactly. They searched his email server and personal notes for mentions of that specific company logo or conference name. By connecting the name on the badge to Boden's own calendar and email records, they uncovered an entirely new, previously unknown conference facility that he had actively targeted.
And when investigators brought cropped, non-explicit photos to the management of that newly discovered facility, the scale of the operation just expanded exponentially. They identified 84 additional victims from that single location.
84 professionals who simply thought they were attending a mundane workday conference.
It's sickening. And the forensic review confirmed the absolute worst reality of mass public voyeurism.
Yeah. Amidst the footage of adults, investigators discovered at least 2 minor children caught in the recordings.
The presence of children completely shifts the gravity of the investigation. Assistant DA Brooke Groner-Robb, who handled the case in Dallas County, described the profound toll this case took on the legal team.
Prosecutors deal with homicides, assaults, and violent tragedies daily, but she noted this specific case provoked a unique, visceral reaction.
She described the entire office feeling deeply creeped out.
And that professional disgust mirrors the severe psychological injury inflicted on the victims. Survivors of mass voyeurism suffer from intense hypervigilance. They experience a total collapse of trust in the built environment.
Knowing that your most private moments were curated and archived by a predator, it causes lasting emotional damage that fundamentally alters how you navigate public spaces.
Exactly.
So you would expect the justice system to bring down the hammer on an offender who systematically violated 1,000 people. But the legal reality of this case is infuriating.
It really is. Under Texas law at the time of the offenses, improper photography was classified as a state jail felony.
Wait, isn't that the absolute lowest tier of felony in the penal code?
Yes, it is. The legal framework was fundamentally disconnected from the technological reality of the crime. The statute addressed the mere act of recording, but it contained no mechanisms to scale the punishment with the volume of the offense.
So, legally speaking, a predator faced the exact same baseline penalty whether they recorded a single victim in a dressing room or orchestrated a multi-city campaign resulting in 1,000 illicit videos.
Exactly. And because it's a state jail felony, the bail system treated him like a low-level offender.
Andrew Boden, a wealthy corporate executive with immense technical resources and an obvious flight risk, was booked into the county jail. He posted a $2,000 bond and walked out after spending exactly 1 hour in custody.
1 hour. The mechanical application of the bail schedule completely failed to assess the unique risk profile of a digital voyeur.
Right. A highly resourced individual on pretrial release could easily access cloud backups, initiate remote wipe protocols to destroy hidden evidence, or utilize their wealth to flee the jurisdiction entirely.
He didn't flee, thankfully.
Yeah.
And the multi-jurisdictional cooperation between Irving, Grapevine, and the district attorney's office did successfully secure felony convictions.
But despite the mountain of evidence, the 1,000 videos, and the minor children, the statutory limitations meant he ultimately received community supervision.
Probation. He had a permanent felony record, but he served no substantial incarceration.
A man stealing a few $1,000s worth of electronics from a retail store faces harsher mandatory sentencing than a man stealing the dignity of 1,000 citizens. It makes your blood boil.
The outcome exposes severe systemic vulnerabilities that the sources highlight as critical takeaways.
Like what?
First, the legal code desperately requires statutory modernization. Legislatures must implement tiered penalty enhancements. If an offender exceeds a certain volume of victims or utilizes highly sophisticated counterfeit commercial fixtures to actively deceive the public, the baseline charge must automatically elevate to higher degree felonies.
The punishment has to scale with the technological sophistication and the human toll of the crime.
Exactly. And the businesses operating these public spaces also bear a massive responsibility. The rapid response of that Brahms assistant manager proves how vital human vigilance is.
So what should businesses be doing?
Facility management must implement rigorous, formalized inspection protocols specifically designed to detect covert surveillance. Traditional loss prevention focuses almost entirely on patrons' shoplifting inventory.
Right, they're looking at the merchandise, not the bathrooms.
Businesses hold a duty of care to protect the privacy of those patrons while they are on the premises. Staff must be explicitly trained during their routine cleaning sweeps to physically inspect coat hooks, gently test electrical outlets to ensure they are flush and grounded, and examine smoke detectors for structural anomalies.
That makes a lot of sense. And the immediate defense against these traps is just our own awareness. Next time you step into a fitting room or a public restroom, take 2 seconds to look at the fixtures. If an outlet is taped to the wall or a coat hook looks unnecessarily bulky, trust your instincts and report it.
Definitely. And remember, the Boden case unfolded in 2013 and 2014. He was a 64-year-old man utilizing off-the-shelf, store-bought cameras with physical SD cards, and he still managed to build an archive of 1,000 victims before a piece of tape gave him away. We really have to ask ourselves a chilling question. What happens to our expectation of privacy today or tomorrow when microscopic pinhole cameras are seamlessly paired with instant cloud-based uploading and real-time AI facial recognition?
Oh man, the technology isn't just getting smaller, it's getting intelligent.
Yes.
The trap won't just record you, it will instantly cross-reference your face with your social media profiles, cataloging exactly who you are before you even leave the room.
That is the reality we are facing.
It's a terrifying thought and a stark reminder that the line between public convenience and private exploitation is thinner than ever. Keep your eyes open out there, everyone. We'll see you on the next deep dive.